Having fun, but I really like that.
That's what we got sworn in for, right?
Berenstein,
Here.
Bertrand,
Here.
Rayford,
Here.
Shaner,
Here.
Scott.
Here, please stand for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Morgan Haskell. Morgan here.
I don't see Morgan. I don't see her.
Anybody here with mental health awareness month? A lot of these are people in their 30s and on Zooms represent Whereas on behalf of the City Council, I'm pleased to join the Historic Preservation Commission in promoting May 4th through the 19th as Historic Preservation Week in Sioux City, Iowa. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. Whereas historic preservation is relevant for all Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. Whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contribution made by dedicated individuals in helping preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people and a community. Now, therefore, I, Robert E. Scott, Mayor of the City of Sioux City, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 4th through May 9th, 2026 is Historic Preservation Week. I read it the way it was, so we'll get that changed for you. In Sioux City, Iowa, and urge all our citizens to learn more about Sioux City and its rich and historic past. I'd like to present this to you guys and thank you for the great work you do in our community. You do a great job of making Sioux City better, and say a few words.
Oh, okay. Let's just do a quick recap of what the week entails. The highlights were, well, of course, today. Yeah, I mean, look how many people came. Yeah. And then Wednesday night, Tom will be doing Sioux City Trivia at Sioux City Distilling. That is who our award is going to this year for historic preservation. Great piece. So if you have not been to Sioux City Distilling, you have 2 chances this week to go. 6 o'clock on Wednesday for Sioux City Trivia. Austin Foster will be serving some cocktails, and we'll have some food. And then Friday at 4, we will present them with the Sioux City Star Award for his epic things he's done with preserving the Ogden building, better known as the Wigman building. Right. It's at 4, so that'll be fun.
Well, good for you. Have a
yeah,
great week.
thank you. Thank you.
We have a proclamation that reads, whereas Sioux City recognizes that nothing is more precious, it's well, we've got to go over these, more precious in our community than the growth and development of our children, and every young person deserves a safe, loving, and stable home. And whereas foster care plays a vital role in providing safe and nurturing environments for children and youth in need. And whereas foster, kinship, and adopted families open their hearts and homes to children whose families are in crisis, play a vital role in helping children and families heal and reconnect, thereby launching young people into successful adulthoods. And whereas a strong network of community partners, including nonprofits, volunteer mentors, education, and government agencies, help create a support system that uplifts youth in care and promotes long-term stability and well-being. Whereas Sioux City acknowledges the essential work of these individuals and organizations and encourages more residents to become involved by fostering, advocating, and supporting families in their community. Now, therefore, I, Robert E. Scott, Mayor of the City of Sioux City, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2026 as National Foster Care Month and urge our residents to recognize the significance of foster care and honor the individuals and organizations committed to improving the lives of children and youth in foster care. like to present this to you guys. Say a few words, we'll get that one word changed.
That's great. So my name is Emma Kroll, and this is Jean Schneiders. We are here with Four Oaks Lutheran Services in Iowa, representing foster care and adoption here today. We just want to thank you guys for declaring May as National Foster Care Month, and then as well as thank our families out there supporting our children. And then again, we do have a huge need of foster families across the state of Iowa, especially here in our county. So if you are interested, go to our website, iowafosterandadoption.org.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Morgan Haskell. We'll go to the consent agenda. Items 2 through 19G constitute a consent agenda. Items pass unanimously unless a separate roll call vote is requested by a council member. Anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item may come to the podium at the time the item is being discussed. Anybody wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so at the end of the regular meeting during citizen concerns. Please always remember to state your name for the record and then provide your statement. I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
2 is a reading of the City Council minutes of April 27, 2026. 3 is a motion appointing Corinne Erickson to the Active Transportation Advisory Committee upon due consideration of the circumstances. The City Council waives the policy that no person shall serve on more than one board or commission. 4 is a resolution authorizing staff to proceed with negotiations with Riverside Technologies to formulate a contract as the IT managed service provider for Oakview Group's city-managed facilities.
Under the management agreement, John, do you have this? Under the management agreement with Oakview, is this our cost expense, or is this an expense that they incur but we manage the contract for them?
I'm not sure if I have that. John Malloy, IT. Not sure if I have.
Okay. It won't affect approving it, but could you maybe get me a summary? Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks, John.
5 is a resolution authorizing the staff to proceed with negotiations from MCP Management to formulate a contract as the primary vendor for the city and county cabling services. 6 is a resolution authorizing staff to proceed with negotiations with Thompson Solutions to formulate a contract as a secondary vendor for city and county cabling services. I need to abstain, conflict of interest. 7 is a resolution adopting plans and specs for the Nebraska Street Water Main Replacement Project, 5th Street to 8th Street. 8 is resolution amending Resolution 2026-0099 to correct a Scribner's error relating to the consulting services agreement with FEH Design for the Long Lines Family Rec Center Loading Dock Structural Concrete Repair Project. 9 is a resolution appointing Jason Allen to the Transit Director. Mike?
Yeah, Council, I would like Jason maybe to come up for a minute just to introduce him. Jason's been with the city 4 years as our transit operations manager, has done an outstanding job. He's been key in internal and external things that transit has going on. He made it a really easy decision for me. So with that, maybe just get a little bit about yourself. And
Hi, I'm Jason Allen. I've been with Transit for about 4 years. I get the privilege of working with awesome maintenance personnel, bus drivers, administrative staff. We serve the public up close and personal, getting them where they need to go every day. So that's an honor that we don't take lightly. So been a resident of Sioux City for the last 12 years. And so I look forward to being here a lot longer. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm very humbled and certainly got big shoes to fill.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks. Congratulations.
Thank you. You guys need to come back every week.
Yes, come on, we love it. Positivity.
10, a resolution accepting the work and authorizing payment to KP Construction for the West Clifton Avenue Sanitary Sewer Siphon Improvement Project. 11 is actions relating to grants. A is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an airport state funding application for a commercial service vertical infrastructure grant to the IDOT to assist with terminal improvements at the airport. B is resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an airport state funding application for an airport improvement program grant to the IDOT to assist in the third phase of the South Apron reconstruction project at the airport.
Does 11B doesn't have anything to do with the 185th?
It does not.
But on the chamber trip last week, there was obviously quite a bit of dialogue in DC, but there was also dialogue at the state level. So I would encourage you to maybe reach out to either Chris McGowan or Barbara and ask them where their discussions regarding the 185th and potential state funding.
That was actually finalized in part of the bill.
Okay.
That they closed on this weekend for $10 million.
Very good. Oh, so it was limited to 10 million, because in the discussions last week, they were actually sensing that 10 million was the floor, so it did stick at 10 million.
That's
Okay.
what I saw.
Okay, okay, thank you.
C is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for an air service sustainment grant from the IDOT to assist with marketing efforts at the airport. D is a resolution authorizing the police department to submit an application to the state of Iowa congressionally directed spending request for grant funding to purchase a surveillance van. E is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an airport improvement grant application to FAA to fund the taxiway C rehabilitation project at the airport. F is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an airport improvement grant application to the FAA to fund perimeter fence improvement project at the airport. 12 are actions relating to street closures. A is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area every Friday, beginning June 5th and continuing through August 7th for Food Truck Fridays. B is a resolution.
Mayor, quick question. Mike, about a month ago, we talked about possibly identifying a permanent food truck location. Have we had any more discussions on that?
We have not.
Okay. If we could maybe continue those discussions? Yes. Thank you.
B is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area on June 6th for the Sioux City Pride Festival. C is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area on June 4th to accommodate the Sioux City Pride Parade and staging. D is a resolution temporarily closing various sections of alleys and streets in the area of 5th Street and Floyd Boulevard, June 12th and June 13th for the Ride for the Kids event. E is a resolution temporarily closing various streets and alleys and streets in the Leeds neighborhood on June 14th for the Leeds Community Day Street Dance and Car Show. F is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the Leeds neighborhood on June 12th for the Leeds Community Days Parade and staging. 13 are actions relating to civil penalties and suspensions. These will be moved to after item 21 because they're a hearing rather than a consent item. 14 are actions relating.
Do you need a motion to move?
Okay.
I'll move that we move items 13A and B to the final agenda items for a hearing.
Second.
Bertrand.
Aye.
Rayford.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Berenstein.
Aye.
14 are actions relating to agreements and contracts. A is a resolution approving renewal option number 1 to the purchase order with High Camp for an additional 1-year period for aluminum. B is a resolution approving and accepting a cooperative agreement from HUD for the purpose of processing housing discrimination complaints by the Human Rights Commission. C is a resolution accepting a license and naming agreement with Security National Bank for the naming rights of the baseball playing surface at Lewis and Clark Park. D is a resolution approving a contract with Sioux City Engineering for 2829 Home Street Emergency Storm Sewer Repair Project. E is a resolution granting a permit to Verizon Wireless to maintain underground fiber and related facilities in the area of Harris Street, West 19th Street, and Castleman Street. F is a resolution approving amendment number 1 to the consulting services agreement with DGR Engineering for the Nebraska Street Water Main Replacement Project, 5th Street to 8th Street. G is a resolution approving a consulting services agreement with McClure Engineering for the Correctionville Road over Bacon Creek Culvert Replacement Project. H is a resolution approving a First Amendment to the Development and Minimum Assessment Agreement with WB Land and Development, the property at 3000 Outer Drive.
Mayor, I got a question on that one. Renee, I just wanted to know, like, how did we get to the amount or the agreement that we got to? I mean, I like it. I like what we're doing. But I just had a couple of questions.
Sure. Renee Billings, Economic Development Manager. So the original agreement with the developer provided that they would have a minimum assessment of $5 million in year one, and then $7.5 million in year two, and then thereafter. So Midwest Wheel is going to come in and build a new facility, so they have agreed to take $4 million of the minimum assessment. So the developer will be left with a $1 million minimum assessment in year one, and then $3.5 million thereafter. And so we'll likely come back as additional development happens, and then additional new projects will take on the remaining minimum assessment.
And it's important to note, those are only minimum assessments. If
Right.
the assessor comes in and works with the developer that it deserves an increased assessment, they're not limited to that minimum assessment number.
Correct. It's likely that
It'll never
the overall property will be assessed that much higher than the $7.5 million when all is developed.
Are we leaning at trying to do this with more developers and those things?
Yes, absolutely. As developers need help with infrastructure, this is kind of the way we can come in and help with the upfront cost of infrastructure. They take on a large minimum assessment and then divide it over the projects that get developed on the property.
It also protects the taxpayer and it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I appreciate this.
Yep, thank you.
Renee, do you know when the construction's supposed to start with Midwest Wheel?
Midwest Wheel, I believe, will start in '27.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I is a resolution approving a minimum assessment agreement on the Midwest Wheels with Midwest Wheel Company, the property at 3000 Outer Drive. J is a resolution approving an amendment number 1 to the service provider agreement with Northwest Electric for the return activated sludge pump repair at the wastewater treatment plant. 15 are actions relating to property. A is a resolution amending chapter number 2026-0357 relating to the hearing on the manager's report of demolition and the resolution declaring a structure to be dangerous and dilapidated and authorizing the city manager to carry out such order to demolish by authorizing a 90-day delay in demolition. The property at 2818 Sergeant Road. The owner is Porsche LLC. Go ahead, Darrell.
Darrell Bullock, Inspection Services Manager. This property was in front of council back on the placard hearing date and was ordered demolition. The property owner has provided the $10,000 cashier's bond, all of the estimates of repairs from the contractors, and a significant letter of financial means to do the project. Staff would recommend a 90-day stay of demolition with bond. And these are the owners here if you have any questions for them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tell us your plans.
So I'm Tanya Vikalskis. This is my husband, Jeff Vikalskis. Do you need our address?
No.
Okay. Our plans are to fix it up, completely restore it. This is not the first project we've done. We understand ethical and sustainable restoration. My husband is an electrical contractor. I have worked in residential real estate for 22 years, and we live in the area. We live about a mile away, and we believe in this property.
I saw your post on social media, and you have a lot of people who are just excited that you've taken on the project and that you're going to bring some life back into that property.
Yeah, and we're not your typical fix and flippers. I've been in enough properties over the years that I can understand the difference between a property that has been well done and maybe one where someone has maybe not put quite enough money into it, so where it just is meeting the bare minimum. I do have a little, I guess, letter. So we understand the concerns that surround the house. It had been vacant for years, had issues with unauthorized entry, and had deteriorated significantly. We stepped in because we want to prevent it from being demolished and restore it properly. We have, since purchasing the property, we've been on a stay, so we can't. We wanted to have the HVAC installed. We have all of our contractors lined up, and they are all local companies. I've given Daryl some of the information. But since we can't do any like real permitted type work, we have been cleaning it out.
What are your timeframes? How are you going to phase the work?
Yes, so we had HVAC, Excel Comfort and Heating and Cooling, was supposed to have pulled the appropriate permits and already started on the HVAC, but we were told that we had to stop. The electrical will be easy whenever my husband's crew can get to it.
You heard her say easy.
Some people say that's easy.
Plumbing, we have Wes Rasmussen with CW Suter lined up. He can start when we need to, and we have A and B. Right. The biggest obstacle we see will be just those retaining walls need to come down. The city's gotten the job scope. The retaining wall project alone is about a $32,000 project. So, but yes, we feel we can get it to the state where we can get the tag removed within 90 days if we're so allowed.
Tanya, I think one of the biggest concerns was I think some of the neighbors just felt like it would just be, someone would come in and just kind of paint over some things. And,
Yeah, yep.
And I mean, so thank you for being here today.
Yes, and we've done other projects, some we still own and live in on a part-time basis. I own and operate in short-term
seen that
rental.
one.
And that, I'm a super host, and that is in the top 10% of all properties for that type of, so we take pride in what we do.
I will say that the scope of work that I've received does indicate that it will take it beyond the minimum housing standards.
I know during the placard hearing, the issues that Ike was pointing to, in addition, there were safety concerns, hoarding issues. Is it cleaned out now, and is the property safe?
So, hoarding is a mental illness, and we did make arrangements with the owner that she could come in and remove her stuff after closing. She believes she will have that completely done. She told us by Wednesday. We have.
Wednesday of this week?
Wednesday of this week. We do have, within our contract, we allowed that property to be, May 8th is her absolute deadline to have everything out. Anything that is in after Friday, May 8th will become our property, and she can no longer have entry to the property.
Did he ask you first before you bought it? I generally move. You kind of moved on your own, didn't you, on that one?
He did not get my permission to buy the property.
I heard that.
No,
well,
he did not.
I'm glad you guys are stepping up in the neighborhood. You're local and everything, and good luck.
Yeah, I think we can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, good luck. Have fun.
Daryl, are you comfortable that the neighborhood is supporting the project and believes in the project?
Am I comfortable in the neighborhood?
Are you comfortable that the neighborhood, we had quite a bit of.
Some of them are here.
I know that, and I see the Woodbury's here, which is why I'm asking the question. Is there?
I've received no additional other than what was at the placard hearing meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and we missed that meeting. We were under the impression we had everything ready to go, and we found out after the fact that we probably should have been there.
Yeah.
So.
We did mail out all the neighbors a letter of kind of
Explanation.
kind of, what a airplane's eye view of what we intend to do and who we are.
Any responses to the letter that you sent?
Nobody has reached out to me. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to be heard?
Well, we wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, get to work on it. B is a resolution proposing to sell a vacated part of 8th Street adjacent to 702 St. Mary Street and a vacated north-south alleys adjacent to 702 St. Mary's Street. The petitioners Amy Lynn Pierce and Damon Marcus Pierce. 16 is purchasing. A is a resolution awarding a purchase order to I-State Truck Center for 2 dump trucks. B is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Karis Corporation for sodium permanganate for the water treatment plant. 17 are applications for cigarette, tobacco, nicotine, vapor product permits. 18 are applications for alcohol license. 19 are boards, commission, and committee minutes. Anyone to be heard on any of those items?
Nicole, question. On 15B, does that have to be heard again next week? Or does that complete that transaction?
15B, it's a purchase order, so it's just one vote on the
So it's done
resolution. It will be
tonight, so
done.
they can proceed from there?
Yes.
Okay. I think they were under the impression they had to come back in next week for a second reading, but it's not.
No, for resolutions, there's just one. Ordinances.
That's what I thought.
Things.
Want to make clarity. Thank you.
And I have one question on 19A, the Airport Board of Trustees. We don't have a council representative on the airport board, is that correct?
That's correct.
But you attend the meetings, correct?
I do.
Is there a reason why we don't have a council member?
It's an administrative board. I think administrative boards don't necessarily have council representatives for the.
Voting electronically, folks. Passes 5-0. Hearing number 20 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the Martin Luther King Jr. Transportation Center Elevator Modernization Project. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing is now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 21 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the Seeger Avenue Water Main Replacement Project. I'll move that.
Second.
Hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 13 are actions relating to civil penalties and suspensions. A is a resolution assessing a $300 civil penalty against Love's Truck Stop, number 479, 2525 Singing Hills Boulevard, for violation of the cigarette laws. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing is now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. B is a resolution assessing a $1,500 civil penalty and a 30-day suspension of the cigarette permit issued to Sky High Smoke Shop and Vape, 1901 Hamilton Boulevard, for violation of the cigarette laws. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing is now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed.
I did have an earlier question with Nicole and Heidi. In light of the fact that this is their third, the prior fine, the suspension, as it relates to their application, but it doesn't affect their ability to apply for their 26-27 application, correct? Okay.
If you want to be heard on that, please come forward.
Can you make
Yep.
sure and speak
State-
right into that microphone?
Introduce
Speak into that.
yourself.
State your name, please.
My name is Musa Al-Mosmi. I'm the owner for Sky High Smoke Shop. I do everything for my business. I do the scan for the ID. I do scan the ID and I do everything. I respect the law. But right now I have the letter, for the fee, like it's 1,500 everything for the fee. I will do it for that one, but I don't know. How can I do it for the omelet, because this is the mistake for the omelet.
Could you move the microphone up a little bit? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I say, I don't know how can I do it for the worker with my business, because I have a lot of business. I don't know what I gonna do.
You're saying your employees aren't scanning the ID cards?
Yeah, sometimes he have the mistake, I don't know.
Well,
I told him I have the system, I have this the sign from outside, from the door, and the cash register and everything, But I told him anyone he do the ticket, I gonna fire him. I don't care, He don't respect my business.
But staff is not using the ID process. Is that right?
Yes, anyone he have the mistake, I gonna fire him, because I told him you don't respect the business. You don't respect my business. How can I trust you for my business? Because I don't know. But right now, I don't know what I gonna do. If you have give me another chance, I don't like close for my store like for 30 days.
Tough. I don't think we're allowed to do that.
Yeah, I don't think we are.
On a third violation, it is a 1,500 and 30 days.
And we don't have latitude to modify the penalty, correct?
State law.
It's state code that dictates that.
We're not closing the business.
Well,
We're not
there is
closing the
but there's a 30-day suspension.
of
For the sale.
license, right?
Right.
Right, so he can't sell. but
I
he-
can't close it,
But we can't do anything about it. Once it's a third fine, that's the state sets the parameters. We don't, so we have to suspend it, and you have to close for 30 days, yes.
We have to close us 30 days.
Well, you
Well,
can't
unless
sell
you-
those
Unless
products.
Unless you're selling something else, but you better not get caught selling cigarettes and vape products and that, no.
Do you sell other things in there?
No, only just cigarette and the vape, that's it.
Oh, I thought maybe, I don't know.
Store like sodas
No,
and
no.
stuff.
Right.
I do everything, I respect the law. I don't do anything like it's out the law, never, because
Got to hammer that staff.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
as
get
a
them to
third,
follow the rules.
as a third violation, our hands are tied, so.
Anyway, I don't know what I gonna do. I have 3 stores right here in South City, and they have in Omaha and Sioux Falls and Chicago. I have too much headache for my business. I don't know what I gonna do. Well, the worker, I do the system. I scan the ID. He scanned the ID in the system. I told him you can scan the ID, whatever. But I don't know. I do everything. But anyway,
We understand. There's literally nothing that we can do.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing is closed. Right. Passes 5-0. Ordinances, 22 is an ordinance amending Chapter 13.08, sanitary sewer rates of the municipal code to increase rates for outside municipalities and outside improvement districts by a 27.4 effective November 1st, 2026. First consideration approved on April 27th.
I'll move second.
Is there a second? Second. Tom, what are the other cities saying?
I'll move second reading, yeah.
John Pingle, Public Works Director. I haven't heard any comments from the other cities, other than a thank you for letting them know.
And they do know.
Yep.
Okay.
And candidly, I was able to spend some time with Jeff Dooley on the chamber trip 2 weeks ago, and he understood, he acknowledged it, and he said that they completely understand the city's position. Now, I don't want to speak for him, but he was sharing that, and his candor was, very clear.
The same communications I've gotten from him in the past as well. I put a little analogy together for a citizen who was thinking, a local citizen who was thinking that the 27% sounds, awful, but it equates to about $4.40 cents for an average household of 2 users. So it's not as horrible as it seems. It makes a good headline, but it's not as horrible as it seems. I think it's very approachable. But again, everyone that uses that plant, whether they're a sister city or whether it's in Sioux City, has got to invest in it because they're using it. They can't just pay a little monthly bill. We have to sustain it, and we have to be accountable for the maintenance fund of it, and there's no other way to do it. This has to be fair and equitable.
Not only the plant, but it's the conveyance systems and all the lift stations that it all goes through, so.
Right.
There's more to it. A lot of infrastructure.
All the conveyance systems that it takes to keep that waste.
So Tom,
I understand all that. I'm just asking the question.
Oh, yep.
good job. You know what, you jumped on that, and it's smart business, and I really appreciate you did a lot of work quick and found the legalese around it, and probably going to do this again in a year. And I thought you communicated it very well. The big thing, too, is I want to make sure that people understand this is not Sioux City. This is our sister cities. This is Sergeant Bluff, the Dunes, South Sioux. They're going to pay their share. And it needed to be done years ago. And so we raised another $1 million for the kitty, and it seems like there's no resistance. Nobody's been here, so great job.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tom.
Council. Thank you, Mayor.
Passes 5-0. I still think when you do a 27.4% rate, you should take all 3 readings, so would not.
Sure. Fine with that.
23 is an ordinance amending Chapter 12.30.020 Stormwater Program Maintenance Fee and 12.30 and 030 Special Rule for certain nonprofit organizations of the Municipal Code to modify the stormwater collection fee. First consideration was approved April 20th. The second consideration was approved April 27th.
I'll move third reading.
Passes 5-0.
Can I clarify?
Yeah.
I apologize. I misheard Councilman Bertrand. He was asking about 15B instead of 16B. 15B does require a hearing. That will return to the council agenda on May 18th.
Then that's done, and it's done.
And then it will be done.
Okay.
Yes,
I thought
thank
there-
you.
24 is motion authorizing staff to draft a city ordinance legalizing the utilization of UTVs on specified city streets. I'm not moving it.
I'll move it.
Second.
So it's,
Nothing's going to happen.
so with some discussion, so I was unable to be at the public discussion because that was the week that I was in, the mayor was as well, in DC with the chamber trip. And so I'm curious, Ike, if you could maybe share some of the input. Also, I know that Ann forwarded a summary of the citizens' concerns, and I was able to see it and read it, but it was hard to decipher.
The dashboard gave you,
Pretty good, the dashboard.
Gave you the totals, yeah.
the dashboard gave you a visual, more than just the
Wasn't a
spreadsheet.
very good one. I'm with
Yeah,
Craig.
And maybe it was just my smaller
Count
screen.
the guesses in the nose. That's all you
I
can
just
count.
couldn't
That's all you
decipher
need to count.
the final input. I know that Ike's got a couple of different proposals, but maybe before we get to what proposals might look like or next steps, could you share a little bit about what you learned?
Absolutely.
That Tuesday night?
As I said a couple weeks ago, I was actually very impressed with the engagement of the citizens for the listening session. We had a room full of citizens out. We had, a little bit on both sides. I think, we heard a lot of good conversation. The chief's here, and I don't know if you want to give some input as to some of the things you heard as well. But I think we're at a point where we, should ask staff to at least draft a couple of options for ordinances and see what those look like as it relates to what the state has allowed us to do, and then we make a decision.
One question that I have that relates to the use of whether it's ATVs, and I know this is just on UTVs, not ATVs.
Right.
But Chief, do you know, or Ike, do you know, when you purchase a UTV from one of the local retailers, you get paperwork, you get a booklet, a pamphlet. Do the manufacturers of the units recommend, or do they say not for public street use? Do you know, Chief?
Rex Mueller Police Department. When we researched this a few years ago, a lot of those vehicles do have a disclaimer that they're not made for that, but I would imagine that this would be on an individual basis. There's new classes of vehicles coming out, so for me to comment and say, a Razor is this isn't. So I think that's, I'd have to look at those vehicles. I know a significant amount of them, certainly the ATVs, as opposed to the UTVs, say not for on-road use for specific reasons. But I think
But you're not certain with the UTVs?
Well, and like I said, it depends on the manufacturer. I'd hate to make a comment and be proven wrong because manufacturers have changed, the tires, the suspension, something that would make them more roadworthy. Obviously, they're made for off-road.
Right.
So.
Thanks, Chief.
And I do think that distinction between ATVs and UTVs, I would go on the record as saying that I will, never vote to allow ATVs on city streets, but I think the UTV is a different class of vehicle, and from what I've seen in my research, I think, whatever we can do to move forward.
So all we're doing today, right, is just giving direction. You have a couple proposals. I got some ideas, but I want to hear yours.
Well, my proposal, I've emailed staff to come up with a couple of options.
Okay. What do you want to share those?
Yeah, I'll send to you what.
The Chief, I got a question. On the ATVs and the UTVs, what's the fine for an ATV fine on the road, an all-terrain, a four-wheeler? Do we know?
Well, it depends on the traffic violation. I mean, they would fall into the same regulations that you're talking about if it's not legalized?
Yeah, right now,
Like right now.
ATVs aren't legal on the street right now. I think it's $70
I'd have to look.
on there.
I apologize.
It is, yeah. So my question is how many, because the concern is that from the police standards, they use these in a lot of other municipalities and other states across the road. And I applaud Ike for giving this thing a vote, which I think it deserves a vote one way or the other. My question is, from the ATCU, is the biggest push by the police department is it because you have to chase them, or because of they're going through yards, or what's the biggest concern with not even having let's start with the ATVs, not having them on?
When the council asks for our guidance, all I can do is provide what ifs, is forecast what are the potential consequences. And, do I have personal feelings? Yes. My staff is divided as to whether or not this is something that should or shouldn't. So obviously there's a difference of opinions out there. Just in my research, some of the concerns that were brought up was just the safety piece, their interaction with other traffic. Now, the UTV advocates have said, well, they're safer than motorcycles. That's a point that they pointed out. Noise also, that being a concern because traditionally they're not quite as quiet, and then that gets brought up again. Well, people with straight pipes on their motorcycle, those are allowed too. Underage drivers, the fact that these would be legalized, almost like golf carts, are we going to see underage drivers operating? If given the opportunity, will people fall into fall into line and follow the laws in that they would equip them as required with the appropriate lights, safety, mirrors, et cetera, et cetera. That, again, becomes another concern because those are usually add-ons. There are enforcement challenges, there's no doubt about it. Is there the possibility that people use them on bike trails, walking trails? yes. I think the talking session that Councilman Rayford facilitated did a very good job of allowing people to address some of those thoughts regarding legalization. I have reached out to other chiefs in the state, didn't get much of a response for those that legalized. They said they haven't seen a lot of enforcement issues, meaning for those communities that legalized, they haven't had a lot of issues that made them recommend one way or the other.
So my question, how many, do you think we have an ATV issue right now in Sioux City at all? Like an ATV issue? I mean, with of
like an
recklessness? Yeah, I mean, just recklessness or a presence of ATV.
We've definitely seen some of that.
Yeah.
I've watched dash cam footage of.
How many tickets have we issued on ATVs?
I don't even know.
Let's
I
get
don't
that
know
down.
offhand.
I don't think it's many, like I said, because I know they're screaming around my neighborhood, and we call and nobody gets busted. So my question is, because when all the UTV guys all present themselves, and I believe that they're going to be responsible. These are high dollar kind of buggies. So what I would propose is, when they go to draw this up, and let me see if this follows with what you're thinking, is from a proposal standpoint is, number one, I think there's going to be some confusion if we pass this between ATV and UTV immediately. So I think we should I think that fines and stinging is going to help with enforcement. So I think immediately we should take another look at what the fines are for ATV usage on roads, other than $70. If we take that to a $250 fine or something like that, we should take another look at the ATV fines if we bring this on board. The other thing is on the UTV side of it, is it's going to be training. I'm not so much worried about the person that owns the buggy. It's, does the kid jump on it and tear off across there? So there's got to be some type of a household regulation to this component of it. So what I would suggest, and this is just, don't ever get freaked out, is I think we should put something in place where on a first offense, the vehicle is impounded and it's $1,000. So that right now it stings. So if these are the everyday people that are coming in and they're doing what they're supposed to do, this should not be an issue at all. And then on a second offense, I think again, you impound the vehicle and it becomes a $1,500 offense. So it's got to be, and then what I like about this introduction with the fining part of it is it's going to get control of these vehicles, but then I think you sunset the fines after like 3 years, which is an introduction time. Sunset the fines and then go ahead. I don't know if we can do it or not.
No, we're limited to simple misdemeanors and the scheduled,
So what's the highest you can find?
I think is it 650?
Depends on the violation.
Depends on the violation.
Yeah.
We can either do a municipal infraction, which can go up to $1,000, but the judges have discretion as to
Sure.
what they actually institute on that.
Do we have
Otherwise-
discretion to impound?
That's dicey. I mean, if it's a
That's not what I asked.
part of
Can
a
you do it or
criminal
can
act.
you? Yeah.
And I agree with,
So you've got kids jumping on it, because here's the biggest concern what you get from people you talk to. You talk to them in Menards or Walmart. The biggest concern is they're going to jump on these things. They're going to be terrorizing the neighborhoods. So how do you get in front of it? You get in front of it by where it stings. So if the kid jumps on it or the guy gets on it and they abuse the privilege that the city is looking at giving it, then let's fine it and let's impound it. And then again, I promise you, people aren't there. Whatever our maximum fine we can do, or let's find the avenue that we need to do. And I think to me, that's a fair compromise. I'm not trying to penalize the sale of the vehicles. I think they're going to do very well in Sioux City. But I just think there needs to be an introductory. If you're screwing around, you get caught.
Consequence has to be.
There's going to be a real kind of, not $70, and that's been my complaint with the ATV thing, is that there's no consequence with the ATVs. So I'm open-minded on this thing completely. I just think that I'd like us to research more than Nicole on what we can do from an enforcement standpoint. Is that fair, Ike?
Absolutely.
Is that a fair?
Yeah, and I believe that those that were proponents offered that as well.
That's why I said they have to offer that
they
a stiff
offered
penalty, yeah.
that.
So that's kind of where we got it.
Nicole, the other question that I would have, and I know that I think Ike's ultimately going to request maybe 3 different alternatives. But the other piece, and part of the reason I was asking the question about the manufacturer's recommended use or recommended non-uses is an insurance question. You know, if they're not recommended for street use and there's an incident, will their insurance coverage cover claims? So I think it's just something that we need to be aware of as well.
And I believe that's part of the registration with the DNR.
It is.
They have to have the proof of insurance.
Okay.
They do? Because I don't think I have to with my boat. When I register my boat, I'm pretty sure I don't have to show them insurance.
I'm just looking really quickly, and
I was going to say, the
And you,
DNR has
Nicole,
the
you don't need to give us
Sure.
an answer today. I just want that to be on your radar.
I think there is a minimum requirement with the DNR that they have to have the insurance
Okay.
requirement, be 18 years of age to operate and so forth, valid driver's license.
Okay, thank you.
We'll follow those codes that are already in place by the DNR.
Sure. We'll have to look at exactly what we're allowed to do. We can be more restrictive sometimes than the state unless it's preempted in the state code. So those are all things we'll be looking at when we're bringing forward a draft as to what the max amount is that we can do for safety and regulations within the state parameters.
And I've asked for a couple of options so that we can have some.
But you're not proposing ATVs?
No,
No.
ATVs off the table, only UTVs.
And would you guys be opposed to once you pass an ordinance, like a 1-year trial period?
I wouldn't.
No, and that's part of the
I think
thing that I was looking at, if we're restrictive and we see how that goes, if we need to be a little less after a year, then we can do that. But I think as Councilman Bertrand said, let's be tight and then we can ease up later.
Mr. Mayor, are you considering that?
Well, I mean, I don't have a huge problem with it, but I want to control it. I mean, if you go to the Black Hills, there's more of them than there are cars right now, unfortunately, which is a little scary when there's 300 or 400 of them running together, but
I just think if the kid jumps on the buggy and gets busted and $1,500 in impoundment, that's going to stop that pretty quick. Yeah.
anyway, there are
And there are some
some that are as
state,
nice as cars.
there are some
That's true.
state restrictions that even, for us being in Sioux City or state highways, they're not allowed on, Gordon.
All of that will play into
All of
whether I
it,
vote
right,
for
absolutely.
draft or not.
Right, so.
So
Can
we're
I-
going to vote whether or not we're going to move forward with having staff draft
Draft.
a couple
It's a
of projects.
very limited direction. Just
Okay.
move forward to draft an ordinance or multiple options or multiple language to give us consideration, taking into account everything that we've discussed.
And we'll be looking for direction down the road too, as well as which roads. Obviously, we're limited on 4 lanes, primary highways.
Right.
State-controlled highways, but if it's citywide, I mean, those are all of the things that we'll need to be looking at when we're.
Is there a maximum speed limit of 35 miles an hour? Is it 30?
35, I believe.
This is good dialogue. The difficult part is, Chief, as you mentioned, the UTVs are either as safe or safer than motorcycles or Zespas or other vehicles that are permitted on the road. So it's a very difficult balance of what we should and shouldn't permit, so.
Well, and I do, sorry, go ahead,
No,
Greg.
go ahead.
Sorry. I do have the dashboard from the total of the survey that we put out, and in support of the UTVs, it's about 67% who took the survey is in support of approving it, 31% against, and about 2% were unsure who took the survey. So we're leaning towards
And
wanting it.
And
what-
that's about
what I-
800.
It was a big sample.
It was a big
About
sample.
Yeah, it was a big sample.
80, something like that, yeah.
And as I said the first night, we want to get it right. We want to be a city of progressiveness and change and doing things. And so, we're taking our time with it. So this is not a decision that we just said yes or no, and so.
826 took the survey. Okay.
Right?
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Passes 5-0. Citizen concerns. Are there any citizens to be heard? If so, please come to the microphone, state your name.
Hello, I'm Lehigh Tonga.
Lehigh.
How are you, Craig? Hey, wanted to come back and discuss the property at 901 Nebraska Street. I know I sent all of you guys an email. I appreciate the responses on that. Couple things. One is trying to figure out when you get a 90-day stay, like we received, in there, it does outline that there has to be progress made on the property. And I'm wondering what the definition of that is.
Carol, you want to come up?
Darrell Bullock, Inspection Services Manager. Progress would be actual movement forward, permits in place, contractors hired, those kind of things would be actual progress.
Just like what was here a half hour ago with that property on South St. Mary's.
We have all of that, though. So
That took over 9 months. These people were here 2 weeks ago, and they've already got that stuff, and they've got contractors lined up. There's a big difference. You're not comparing apples and oranges, you're comparing apples and oranges.
But to be fair, I think that is true. It is not the same. And the only reason why is because I've restored many house properties, and they're not always required to have blueprints. That is the major difference here. Those guys and what they presented today was what I presented the day that the stay was granted. Everything that they brought today, Darrell, is this true or not?
Requirements for commercial properties are different than requirements for residential properties.
That's what I'm saying. It is different, so it's not the same. But everything that they provided today, I did provide the day that the stay of demolition was presented. The only difference is that I have to supply blueprints. So in order to do that, we couldn't do it until the demolition, the 90-day stay was granted, because it's almost $40,000. So we communicated that we were not going to move forward on even starting the blueprint process until we were granted from City Council to move forward. And since then, there has been communication that that's what we were doing. I have an email between Darrell and myself and with Heath, the inspector, in December, setting up time to meet and go over the property.
That was discussed at a prior event here at the council. We did show up at that meeting, so did the architects. Lehigh was there present for a few minutes and received a phone call and left. So there was not a final anything there other than basic questions from the architect, and they left. So there was not a conclusion at that point.
It was that, Darrell, that wasn't an accurate depiction. I apologize. I have to just be straightforward because this is obviously my life here. You weren't there. I asked you to be present. You sent Heath, which is totally understandable, and I respect that. But prior to the meeting, I let them know my father was in the hospital. He had a heart attack. If I get the call, I would have to go. Before I left, though, and I wasn't there for only a few minutes, it was at least 30, 40 minutes at this point. Before I left, I said, can you guys continue to iron this out? And is there anything that you absolutely need me present for? Because if so, I'd like to still be present and knock that out now before I go. They all said, it's totally fine, you can go. They're professionals. These guys draw up blueprints every single day. Heath inspects, that's his job, every single day. They can work together in finding out if there was any discrepancies that we're working from on a construction standpoint versus what the city's expectation is, right? I mean, understandable. I sent Darrell, that correspondence happened in December, came back. We ended up not being able to move forward with that particular company. We started again in January. We then since finalized and got everything done and submitted back to the city in March. So that's very reasonable for me and what I think it would take somebody to get 14 unit blueprints done and submitted to the city. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard back, and I know that they're busy, but I'm trying to figure out what annotates progress, because I asked to do physical work and was told no. So the only way that I can do any work on the property is if I have blueprints done. that progress has tried to be made. So how?
So you do or you do not have the blueprints?
I did, and I submitted them to the city 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
They were resubmitted after there was initial considerations. Their resubmittals do not have stamps on them, nor are they complete yet, so.
So they're not stamped and they're not completed? You don't
The
believe,
second
Darryl?
set was not. The first set was, but it was not complete. So revisions were made to it, sent in, and then the stamps were not present on those revisions either.
And I would be more than happy to get that, but we have to come to city council meeting to be told that? I asked, hey, if there's anything that you need here, if you could give that to me. I'm not trying to be difficult there, I promise you that. We've worked together for many years and never had a problem. I've never had a problem. I mean, I'm actually dumbfounded because in the email that I stated, and I included everybody, I made it very specific. I'm more than willing to communicate. You can reach out to me at any point in time. I will absolutely jump on it and respond and get it done for you. I even asked today if there was an update on the plans where we can go from here. No response, and then we come here and you're like, well, yeah, there was problems with it. Well, I'd love to know that so I can get on it for you guys. Just like every other instance, if there's any other problems in the permitting process, you reach out to the contractor and you give them that opportunity to make changes. Why is that different right now?
But why is it different now than it was 9 months ago?
It is not different. I
But you have a
outlined.
resurgence of energy and you're trying to rebuild trust with the city on a project that has basically been abandoned since the new owner bought it in 2022, 23. It's sat there.
I do understand
And now
that.
all of a sudden, the placard hearing comes, and you're being responsive to that.
To be
That's-
fair,
that's-
Julie, it was before that. I've always, and this is why I would like to ask, and I asked in the email, I would like to ask Darryl if he's ever contacted me or his team. Ask Keith, the inspector.
Let me explain something to you. When you got a 90-day stay, I can't impress upon you enough that that's not Darryl's job anymore. That's your job.
Correct, Bob.
You
and
you should be here. Darryl should not have to be here.
Darryl asked me not to, Bob.
Well, there was no urgency whatsoever until the demolition comes up again.
No, for the 90-day stay.
I can respond to that.
For sure.
There was never a comment from you asking me to not come to this. I never told you not to come to any of this.
No. That's,
You
I want
just
to
made a
clarify.
statement in front of council. I just want to be very clear on that.
I clarified because I did understand that was what there was an implication, and I did not want to make that at all. All I was saying was at the 90-day stay, he said it wasn't a requirement for me to be here. So I said, okay, no problem. And there wasn't, and he got it done. That's great. But that was my communication the day I signed the paper. I said, Darryl, I actually didn't sign it the first day. The secretary was there. She gave me the paperwork. I got it. I went into the office and I got it. And I said, hey, this language reads that I have to get this project done in 90 days. It's impossible. And then I spoke with Darryl and he said, no, it does say that, but there just has to be progress made. And I said, okay. But
when was that?
August.
It was August. It was the end of August.
Right, and then you said you would have the project finished in 6 to 9 months. And it's,
From the
nothing's happened.
plans being done. But I will start work tomorrow if I get the green light, tomorrow. But we can't.
But your plans aren't approved because they're not.
If I start work tomorrow, I'll get a fine and they'll still move forward, right? So that's the problem I have. I will start work tomorrow if given the approval. But we cannot, and I've asked multiple times, I said, hey, there's some things exterior-wise that we can just start with that are not structural to the property. We can at least get moving on those. The roofing company was ready to go. I said, hey, can we just at least get the roof done? That way that there's not a continual dilapidation on the interior of the project. I was told we cannot do anything, which that is the standard, until the blueprints are approved. So there was no.
But you've had from last August until now to get blueprints. And now.
It
you're
is not
rushing to
as
show up with
easy.
them. How do other people do it then? You're saying that you're very experienced in doing these things, and I believe you, but for some reason, this specific site that has been broken into, had fires, it's had everything else since the new ownership. Nothing has happened. And now, I can't believe that you cannot get blueprints from when this building was purchased until now. Now, again, the demolition order was given. Now there's a sense of urgency coming from you and your partner.
I've only been involved since August.
Is part of it, Lehigh, that you don't want to commit the capital of, I think you said $40,000 to get the blueprints finalized and stamped and submitted, or has that process occurred?
We did that. There was some revisions when I talked to Henry originally, like I submitted to him. We looked over them quick. I went back and spoke with him personally. He said, hey, there are a couple things that you need to do just right off the top. So I reached back out to the guys. They made those revisions. The original blueprints they were stamped. So if the revision wasn't stamped, it was just an oversight. It's the same company. They just need to stamp the revision. But they were done.
Strange oversight.
Well,
What's the wish of the,
I mean, it just does. That's what they do. I'm not sure how you create plans and you don't use your authority and stamp them.
what's the wishes of the council?
Asked. I don't know that anything's being.
He's just.
I'm asking to start the work. I'm asking to start the work. We can start the work tomorrow. I have everything ready to go.
There's
Obviously,
nothing on the agenda for us to vote on.
it is not. So
Just
first
your
thing it would have to do
concerns
is
to
go,
give us-
it would have to get onto the agenda, and then we can, I'd love to come back for that as well, but we're ready to go. And
Hold on. So where's the partner in all this?
he lives in Montana.
Okay, what's his involvement at this point? Is he putting up the money? Is he the money guy?
Yeah.
So he's the money guy, okay?
Yeah.
So has he produced you personally a letter of credit or some type of funding, or do you have proof of funds? I mean,
Yeah.
'cause you told me this project's 900 grand. To me, it ain't. But just, we're both in construction. I think you're gonna put a ton of sweat equity, and that's fine. I just think that there's a validity problem here, and Julie's right. There's a validity problem here, and I hope this guy isn't setting you up.
No, it's financed through the bank. He's not financing it personally, but his responsibility in the project is that's his responsibility is to handle that. So he did. He got with the bank. We secured the financing. We submitted that letter. Now, I did talk to Daryl, and there was a potential language issue in the letter, so I got that revised, and I'd be more than happy to send it to you, but.
So Daryl, because that was an issue I pointed out to Daryl.
Yeah.
2 months ago, when I looked at what was represented as a letter of credit, that was not a letter of credit, it was a letter from a financial institution, I believe in the Iowa City market, that simply said that they're available to help finance the project. Financing the project is not indicating that there's a letter of credit.
The amount
Because
of
letter of credit indicates that the funds are in the bank supporting the project.
amount of money that was stated on the letter was $900,000, and that had been approved for repairs on the properties, not necessarily the address here, and that was 2 years prior to the address or the date on the letter.
So is there a new letter or
Not that
commitment?
I've received.
I have not sent, but I do have one. I'm more than happy to send it to you guys.
I'd send it to Daryl, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, and as you shared with me, you basically had $1 million. You took 100,000 and used it as a bond, right?
Mhm.
And then so that left that 900 for you to finish those things up with, so.
Which we still will have access to once we get going. So a lot of companies that are doing $100,000 bonds on properties like this, they don't want to take that on. So if you go to a bond company and you wanted to get that, it's not going to happen all the time, but they will, however, do it maybe mid-project. So then we can go to them, it's a smaller fee, they take on the risk, then we get our cash back and then we can use that. But it's not necessary for that cash, but we do have $100,000 in cash with the city. That if we get a bonds company eventually throughout the project to pick it up, typically it'll be 10%, we pay $10,000, they give us the cash back and we can use it.
Mike, do you have any thoughts?
It's been a process, I think, to get where we're at right now. And right now, where we're sitting is going out for demolition. I don't think we have any plans that have been reviewed at this point to finality, to give you complete responses back. It's really up to the council whether you want to give additional time. If you want to give a date certain, that'd be my only recommendation. If you were to give leniency, give a date certain on what that needs to be in 30 days. I know.
Not willing to do it again.
We were given the
Just gonna be
90 days, and I just, for me, I like, we talk about potentially, like, no offense, Rick, but you sent in the email that you would love to give us an opportunity to develop in the future. We're developing now.
Dude, I'm the champion of development. If I thought
developing
this
now.
project was valid, man, I'd be screaming right now. I just don't think it's valid. I think what's going to happen is this thing's been kicked down the road. I think you're going to get about a third of the way into this, and it's going to go broke. And it's going to be a mess, and it's going to go to court, and then it's going to sit there for 3 years. And it's going to be versus it's time to clean the neighborhood up. If housing needs to go there, then let's put a real project with fresh whatever needs to be income housing in there. That's my opinion, man. I'm just no, but I'm just saying I'm all about the development side of it. I just don't think it can happen.
Let him talk. He let you talk.
That's all. I just don't think it's brother. I don't think it's a valid project. I think you're going to get took on this. I really do. I'm not trying to protect you. I'm not giving you legal advice. I just think that it's the scope of the project and the fuzziness around it and the timing of it just doesn't make sense. And I think it's time to clean the neighborhood up. It sucks.
I agree with cleaning the neighborhood up, which is why we're trying to do it, but I would ask you that question. You just said that you would want people to develop it and turn it into housing for someone.
Yeah.
Who is that?
There's a ton of people, maybe even you.
Why maybe? It's my property.
That's what I said.
Right? So why maybe? That's what I don't understand. What I don't understand is I'm saying I have the capital, I have the experience, I have everything ready to go. Why do I maybe get an opportunity at developing my land? How absurd does that sound?
First of all, where's your partner?
That's what I said.
Because I'm not saying you can't do the work, but I like to see the money guy stand there and make a statement that he's going to make sure that $1 million is available. Because right now we got a letter. We had a developer at the airport, Mike. He had all kinds of letters of credit. Of course, none of them were on a bank that was actually a bank, but he had some really fancy, nice letters. I mean, I want to know who the dude is that's got the cash in the project. Why is he not here? This is what he does. Developers come to town and show up.
Fight for the project.
Right.
Guys,
And I know
I'm
you're
every bit
saying
owner.
that the property's yours, but has it been added to the name of the property?
It has, and that was
So you're on
submitted to
there too?
Daryl, and he wouldn't actually talk to me until he got that paperwork, so it is.
So if I pull up Beacon, your name's on it now too?
It's on the LLC that owns the property, yes.
Well, I think the first.
It won't appear on Beacon, because
Right.
to your
Right.
point, Julie,
I can look
the
at the
owner of the
estate.
real estate will indicate, but
Right.
look and see if you're a manager or member of the LLC. We'd have to look in the,
And it actually had to go to the legal department, so I submitted that paperwork to Daryl, and
Well,
he.
I think that the first step is obviously, there needs to be some approved plans. And until that, there's no work that can be done. So, if the plan, I mean, that's where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So Daryl, I don't know, what that looks like. I don't know if you can get that done by the end of this week. I don't know.
Daryl, what's going to happen over the next 30 days with the demolition? The realistic timeline of what you're looking at for the next 30 days?
A scope that would be able to be accomplished in the next 30 days would be the asbestos survey. That would be the first step. You have to wait for the lab results. So within that time period of 30 days, a asbestos survey could be conducted and the lab results back, knowing what would have to be abated.
So clearly, you're not going to be able to do anything in the next 30, even if we do nothing tonight. You've got 30 days where you've got to have an asbestos analysis. In 30 days, you'll report back to tell us whether the asbestos affects the demolition, correct?
Asbestos will always affect demolition, yes.
If the report indicates.
Just the amount is what changes.
The next action would just be to bring a demo contract back to council.
Correct.
But not for 30 days until you know the asbestos results.
Well, it could be
That's
less.
part of the contract.
There's several steps to it, and there's several pieces of the contract. Some of those contracts are a small enough dollar amount that they do not need to come to council, which unfortunately, those are the very first ones
Have you
before
pulled
the
the
actual
trigger,
fiscal.
Daryl, have you pulled the trigger on the demo?
Yes.
So the triggers, have you pulled the trigger on the demo contract?
Have I pulled on it?
Yeah.
No,
That's
there's a
really
lot
what
of
we're
steps.
asking. That's really what we're asking.
Right, there's a lot of
Which is
steps that have
cool.
to
Yeah,
take place before
And
that.
the reason
you in
I'm
that
asking
process?
is because I'm not sure that
Asbestos
we need
survey.
to do anything tonight.
We can't.
That's what I'm saying, is that we can't do anything tonight. You've got effectively a period of time until Daryl can finalize the demolition. If you can prove, I'd spend this week getting as much done as you can before he pulls the trigger on the demolition. And while we can't do anything and won't do anything formally, my sense is that if you can prove that you can make progress in this first 7 days, 14 days, to get to 30 days, I think the council wants to try and find an opportunity to save the property.
I appreciate that.
I understand what Rick's saying, I understand what Bob and Julie are saying.
It's a great looking property.
Yeah.
It's just, you're gonna make it.
If I were you,
And it's not,
Lehigh,
it's also not unrealistic, Craig, for us to ask developers to show a pro forma. Is how many,
sorry, I
show
missed that.
show the pro forma on it. And there's nowhere through all of this, you're looking at 14 apartments. What are you gonna get for rent on those? I looked at your plans, I looked at them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the 1.5 beds, those type of things. You're hoping to get $1,000?
They're all 2 beds, but yeah.
Well, they got that little jog, I'm not sure you're gonna get that through, but, so you're looking to get $1,000?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So in that neighborhood, you get $1,000. I mean, so, does it even work? I mean.
Oh, it absolutely works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't work in my math, but.
Are you going for market rate rent?
I'm sorry.
Is it market rate rent? Is that what you're going to price it out at?
We're not sure until we get close, but, obviously it's not going to be luxury housing right there, right? So whether that be working through low-income housing, HUD housing, that's what's already.
Shouldn't you already have?
At 52,000 a box, it ain't gonna be high-end housing.
Well, I think you've got to get
Correct.
the work done. I mean, I think
No,
at this point.
But, yeah, but for us, we just want to get the work done. And this is totally respectful for sure, but if I lose on the project, that's on me, but I'm not going to because this is what we do, right? Like if you do a lot of it, and if you go and you develop a property, that's on you. And you would never be told that you should make a profit on developing the property. No, your profit is on the equity of the property, same as mine. So saying that I'm going to put sweat equity into a property is absolutely true because that's what I do. I wouldn't expect to not do that. So.
Well, Leah, I told you, from the start of this that I'm willing to give you 30 days. You said you could get a lot done in 30 days.
Absolutely.
I don't know what that looks like as it relates to getting plans and getting work done, but I'll stand on that. So,
Thank you.
As Craig said, you have.
Hasn't that 30 days
the
already
two
passed,
things-
though, Ike?
The two things I told you, Lehigh,
I just
I
need
am
the
happy to
plans
look at this
approved.
objectively. I'm continuing to look at it objectively, but Daryl needs to be comfortable that real progress is being made because the council is going to take direction from Daryl. That is his job.
Yes.
And at this point, Daryl does not seem comfortable that you and your partners can make the necessary progress, whether it's 7 days or 30 days. My sense right now is because there is a natural delay of likely at least 30 days because of an asbestos study, I'd be working as hard as you can to convince Daryl over the next 7 days to 14 days that you're making real progress. Because if Daryl comes back up to that mic in 7 days or in 14 days and says, I am comfortable that Lehigh and his partners are making true objective progress, I'm willing to revisit it. But unless Daryl tells me that, I'm not going to change my perspective.
Would I get a commitment to looking the plans over and getting that done? Because that's the only way that real progress can be made. So unless that happens, but I haven't gotten a response back.
We will look over those plans, but they still need to be stamped, and they're not stamped at this point. So if council's asking us to look at those plans that are not approved,
Let him get them stamped first and submit them to you. It won't
we
do
can
any
look
good
at
to
those
do
if you would
that.
like us to, but yeah.
No.
Do you know the timeline that it would take to review those, Daryl?
As soon as we get them in here, depends on the amount of work, we could probably get them done within a week or so.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't want to come back next week and say, well, why haven't you done anything? I just wanted to be
So
clear.
get them stamped and then resubmit them.
Okay. All right. I'll do that. Well,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Anyone else be heard? Any other citizen concerns?
Hi, Shayla Moore at the Warming Shelter.
Hi, Shayla.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. So in order to stay under my 3 minutes, I brought a little note.
Take as much time as you need.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
All right. Good evening. My name's Shayla Moore, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Warming Shelter. I'm here tonight to respond to the discussions that took place last week regarding the efforts to classify the Warming Shelter as a nuisance or a specified crime property. The approach being taken right now is not, in my opinion, productive. Finger pointing, sharing misleading information, and framing our organization in the worst light possible does not move this community towards solutions. It creates division, it fuels frustration, and ultimately leaves everyone feeling unheard. No one wins in that environment. My goal is simple and transparent, as it has been since day one, to continue operating a low-barrier shelter that saves lives and provides a place for people to stabilize and rebuild. Your goal, Rick, has been less clear from what I've gathered. There have been 2 possibilities, maybe more. You want us to either move from our current location because it doesn't align with your vision for downtown, or you want us to cease operations entirely. If either of these interpretations on my account are correct, then I just want to be straightforward. Offer ideas on where you believe the shelter should be located and work with us to explore those options. I ask you to join the discussion of how we can best serve this population and address the concerns that you have. Collaboration will move us forward, accusations won't. Be a part of the solution, don't just identify something you see as a problem. If it does not benefit the Warming Shelter, the council, or the community to continue exchanging claims, counterclaims. If you want me to spend time addressing every inaccurate or misleading statement made about our organization, I absolutely will do that. However, I think it is a far better use of our time to identify what each party wants to see and then working toward a solution that protects both our community interests and human lives. Thanks.
Shayla.
Thanks. Any questions?
So in full candor and transparency, I reached out to Shayla this morning. We had a very nice visit. I wanted to get her perspective on some of the commentary, and I appreciate what the chief had mentioned last week. Rick, I appreciate your approach to trying to address these issues. I think all of the council members are trying to get their arms around how we manage the social services issues and everything that is combined within the very complex nature of the citizens that you serve. And while I don't want to respond in particular to the Warming Shelter or the Gospel Mission or the Soup Kitchen or to Agape, I am still going to reiterate, and I shared this with Shayla this morning, and as I've shared with Chief Mueller, I do not believe this is a police department issue. I believe that this is a complicated, complex issue that our community needs to address. And I asked before, and I'm going to ask again, that we as a council support retaining a consultant that can help Warming Shelter and all of the other social service agencies to manage this issue. Part of it is the services that you're providing, part of it is your location. And I know there are other communities that have addressed location and providing these services. And I'm going to ask the council again to find it within our financial wherewithal to support retaining a consultant to help us identify these issues, working with the Coalition on Homelessness and otherwise.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shayla.
Anyone else?
My name is Melvin Carter. Well, today, it seems like I got 2 concerns. One with the Warming Shelter and one with the Donaldson Park. Okay? Now, everybody know that y'all want the Warming Shelter near town. Cause a scene. People hanging out, you know, in the front, on the side, and stuff like that. They trying to clean that up. I gotta give it to them, they trying to clean it up. But if you run them from there, where would they go? What would happen to the homeless? Then they'd be down here amongst us, amongst y'all anyway, because they won't have nowhere else to go. See, so therefore, you should think very hard when you tell them that they got to move. See, because once upon a time, I was part of their community, okay? They were there for me, okay? So therefore, when you're taking things that people need away from them, that's not a plus, that's a negative. You're hurting the community and the people who they serve, okay? Now, so much for that. Let's get back to my little park we were talking about last week. Y'all had Matt call me. He called me Tuesday. He kind of convinced me that they take care of the park. When I'm kind of let them know that I'm there all the time. The park needs more than right now. My mower's broke, but I got to get a mower so I can keep the park up. Because I got to go, because we got children in the community need it, just like people in the community need a warming shelter. See, and when you take these two things away, you're taking a lot from the community. You're taking a lot for the things that people who really need in the community. See, so therefore we should take a closer look at how we vote for the warming shelter and how we vote to keep the little park in the community that's been there for over 20 years.
Sir, Matt is revisiting the issue, correct?
Yeah, he's working
Matt?
with Rick Arnold.
Right. Yeah, Matt is working with neighborhood network individuals to revisit all of the parks, including Dinosaur Park.
Okay, so we, if he doing this, why Dinosaur Park never had an upgrade? Dinosaur Park never been taken care of. Everything in there old, rusty. See what I'm saying? The swing is rusty. The little horse that the little children rocking back and forth on, hard to move because of them rusted all out. Y'all haven't been upkeep with the parks for the children to play with. I'm looking at that, you know, like the slide. The step is real high on the slide. Little kids really can't get up on it. The parents got to help them up on it. You know, but, you know, like, I hope y'all and Matt do the right thing. Leave the little park alone for the children to play, because the little children been going out there playing. Little children been coming out there to help me pick up the park. See, I got signed notes from little children, their parents and everything, telling that they don't want that park closed. And I can bring that back to y'all if you want me to at the next city council meeting. But that's all I got to say. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Joe.
Councilman?
How are you?
Pretty good. Wish I wasn't here. I'm Joe Twidwell, and I have been involved with the warming shelter since its existence. I've also been involved with a lot of other not-for-profits in the community that serve those that are in need. I ask the same question that Shayla does. What do you want? The one thing that is frustrating is we do have a great organization in the community called the Siouxland Coalition to End Homelessness. It's made up of almost 40 organizations that collectively form the fabric of providing services to people in need: food, shelter, health care, counseling, every aspect of that. We meet on a regular basis, and the city is involved in that. Clara Coley and Joe Wanderscheid, we all try to work together to provide whatever it is that people need. And the thing that's frustrating is this is not a new issue. One of the things the Housing and Urban Development form of the government requires is on an annual basis, we do what's called the point-in-time count. It's administered by Neighborhood Services. It's been going on in this city in the same fashion since 2008. And the average number of sheltered and unsheltered homeless for the 18 years that we've done the pit count is 300.888. So you've had roughly 300 sheltered and unsheltered homeless in this community since that time. Since that's when they started requiring it as statistical evidence to be eligible for the various grants that we need to provide services in the community, the city and the other agencies. In that time, and again, you can go to Neighborhood Services, get a copy of this. They have identified 37 agencies within a 1 square mile area of downtown that provide essentially all the services for people in need of everything from health care to housing to food. And so when you talk about relocating and you talk about moving the shelter, what are you going to do with the people that need, they have to go to the Martin Luther King building to get assistance in housing. They have to go to Center for Siouxland. They have to go to Community Health Center that sees thousands of patients every month. If we don't, as Shayla pointed out, if we don't collectively try and work together for a solution, that it's not going to fix the problem, but the thing that serves the people in our community the best possible. And these people that are being served by these agencies, the overwhelming majority of them were either born and raised in Siouxland or have been in Siouxland for over 10 years. So that sometimes when the term these people or the people, no, there are friends and neighbors and relatives that are coming to all these agencies for service and for help. And we want to do this collaboratively, and like I say, the Siouxland Coalition to End Homelessness, we meet on a regular basis, and the meetings are open. People can come in, and thank you, Councilman Berenstein and Councilman Rayford. You came to the meeting. The council was invited to come to the meeting, but they were the only two that showed up at the meeting. And we're constantly trying to work on solutions that work for the whole community. But we need some cooperation, not vilification, not statistical misinformation that vilifies one organization over another. I'd ask you, like Shayla said, I'd ask you to be part of the solution, please.
Anyone else be heard?
Yeah, how's it going? My name's David Flores-Mariquin. I'm with the Nameless Project. I just wanted to echo on what everybody else here from the Women's Shelter had stated. And this particular commentary that came from a councilman here, kind of hit home as somebody that went through those struggles and wound up, getting myself out of it. I only did it because of folks like the Women's Shelter, right, and all those services. And as Councilman here Bernstein, sorry if I butchered that, mentioned, this isn't a single-faceted issue, right? It's not as just getting these people out of here. It isn't that. If that would have been the case, then that would have been gone and long gone and so on and so forth, right? This is such a complex and nuanced item that it almost requires the city to get involved in some shape, way, or form, right? And statements as a councilman here had made to me, that
What statement?
I believe this is a quote here. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. The businesses in the area have been very clear that they're looking at moving or is hampering their client base and they're in play and safety.
Fact.
I would ask what businesses.
I know the realtor's working on two businesses right now, so. It's in
Okay.
confidence.
Well, for the sake of my time here.
No, you said I make statements. That's a statement. That's a fact.
Okay. Let me grab some other stuff here. My apologies for not being prepared. And I'm trying to find if this is the one made here by by the councilman here. They can say what they want, they're still harboring the 20% in Tier 1 housing, and those are the majority of the troublemakers. Why should we be held hostage to that 20% downtown? With all the multi-million dollars being invested, has been invested, that wants to be invested, why do we have to be held hostage? That's not cruel, it's called law enforcement. And I could go on, I don't want to waste more time here. That just sounds like, to me, you're trying to, criminalize or further criminalize this situation here.
Let's stop right there. I'm not criminalizing. I'm saying is that we've had a historic movement in this community with the homeless. This is an issue that is, you guys, I know you want to make me the villain in this, but this, I'm telling you, this is called community. You want the council involved? That's what this is, a council involvement. We have had a historic movement with the police department, the Heart Association, other things. We have more stakeholders involved than we've ever had involved when it comes to dealing with this problem. We've come to the conclusion, we've identified the people that want help or they want to leave. That's all the agencies have said that. The police, we've done that. But there's going to be an element that's there of about 15 to 20% that don't want help. They're trouble. There's some illegal activity that sometimes is associated with that. Now that's where we're at in this process. So again, now this has been pigeonholed that I'm saying that it's all on the warming shelter. I'm not saying that, but it's naive to say that that isn't where the community believes it. Am I wrong? It's a stereotype.
Sure. So
the gospel mission doesn't have that stereotype. The other places don't have those stereotypes. So I'm just saying is that if we want to have a real discussion about this as a community, and the community's with me on this, guys, it's an 80-20. They are. So if you want a real discussion, then let's identify that 20% that's giving the problems, that's doing the theft, that's sleeping in there, that's defecating in the entryways to businesses, that are harassing the people that are in there.
Rick.
I understand that.
Our clients.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is that all I'm saying is that we're identifying that 20%, and the stereotype from the community hovers there. If we're defending that and making that clarity, then this is the venue to do it. That's great. But let's don't villainize or try to say that this issue isn't real, because it is real. And that's why most of this change has been, or I've been elected. And I'm not going to just pass it down the road like everybody else. There's real solutions out there, guys. And I'm not advocating to push the warming shelter out. You and I talked about rebranding it or getting services within the shelter that they don't feel that they need to make the walk straight through all the businesses. Don't say that I'm not presenting solutions. And don't say that I'm not compassionate.
Okay,
Okay, again, keep reading social media that says that, but from what I do in my personal life, and what I do, I know I'm compassionate, and what I'm doing it is, and I'm focused. So again, let's find solutions together. I'm good. Great discussion.
Let's let this gentleman talk.
Yeah, I didn't mean to strike a nerve there, Councilman.
Don't accuse.
Say what?
Then don't accuse that I'm this villain in this thing. I'm
not accusing. I'm going off of direct quotes here, and as someone that is, part of a new organization that's spawned because of items like this, that's why I'm here. I'm not here to villainize you. I'm not here to attack you. I'm not here to make any of that, right? I'm more so on the fact of, hey, let's work together. We've known that this has been an issue. We're without the tri-state, we're a city of what, maybe 90,000 now? We don't have Sioux Falls' Omaha's issues, right? We can most definitely get together and make this work. Mind you, and maybe that's what it was, right? That triggered that response in me is that, yeah, I read these statements. I'm like, well, that's a really out of touch item there, right? So to your point, then all right, let's work together. How do we do that then, right? I'm not an official member. I present myself to these coalition meetings, right? That's a great avenue to start. If not, there's multiple ways, but to just go out and make such statements to that, it does seem a little bit crass. And my apologies if that came off a certain kind of way. That particular item, being that it was part of my reality, it kind of hits home, especially when, as Joe said, these are people that are out of our neighbors, our friends, myself included, that have been out there, and to be told, hey, man, you're kind of just messing up my time drinking downtown. All right, well, let's do something about it then. That's all I wanted to state. And I don't mean to offend anybody here, don't mean to make a certain kind of hateful atmosphere here, but this is more of a, hey, now that we've got the spotlight on it again, I mean, I see this, the spotlight's always on it. You see it here, right? So let's flip that into a more positive light and work with institutions that have been known and tried to help the community, such as the warming shelter. Instead, and I'll leave with this, we have other orgs, we think of somebody like the gospel, but there's limitations to that, right? You can't show up if you're not of the denomination. If you're under these particular situations, you can't go there, right? These folks allow anybody there, and sometimes that's what those people need, is just that one little push. And you're absolutely right, just some folks won't get it, and that is fine. There is nothing we can do about that. That's just human will. But for the other 80%, I would say that it's more. Let's offer them the services that they need. Unfortunately, and I don't know if this is by design or what, those services are all downtown. It just happens to be. So
all right, I'm going to have you wrap it up because we're doing.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brett Watchorn, as always. Of course, I will once again say, don't remember there being a 3-minute time limit on the First Amendment, but, no one ever seems to care. The couple of things, need to tone down the rhetoric on this homelessness and whatnot. It's very clear that the way that the council has been presented it and been presented by it, the few members, no, not trying to pigeonhole anybody, the word nuisance property, that doesn't need to be done at all. It's illegal. I realize, and that's why you're getting away with it, but it makes you seem callous and uncaring. Do you agree?
No, I'm actually trying to fix a problem.
You're highlighting a problem that didn't really have a big existence until you put a spotlight on it. 2, that's another story entirely. When I'll address Craig's idea quick here. The idea of hiring a consultant, I will always be against because we love to waste money on that. Unless it's going to be, Miss Shayla, that would be perfect. That would be a great consultant to be hired by the city and paid for her services. Beyond that, as an example, did we ever recoup the 25 grand wasted to find Mike's replacement?
No.
Thank you. My point made there. Then I've tried this many different ways, so I'm going to present it in my official capacity. I would like for the council to direct the Fiscal Effective Public Policy Committee to look into changing the meeting time. Or, even better, put out a survey. Worked so well for the ATV thing, put out a survey. I think moving the meetings by an hour would be fantastic. 5 o'clock, when people are actually off work, can actually come, be here, and present themselves. I missed being able to make public comment for several weeks because I get off at 5 o'clock, and public comment started almost at 4:30. It was over by the time I even got out of work. So yes, I will say I'm on this committee. Let's use it. Please direct us to look into the problem or the issue that I keep presenting about these meeting times. And then I'll also bring up the fact that the last budget meeting was in the middle of the day on a Wednesday. Who were you expecting to show up on the middle of a work day on a Wednesday? I realize it probably just fit in the schedule there, but that's just ridiculous. Sorry, several weeks of things bubbling up. But as I say, that's what I got today. Thanks, everybody.
Anyone else to be heard?
Hi, my name is Rachel Tudehope. I work for Neighborhood Services. I'm also part of the HEART team. I have been working with Captain recently to build a list of resources that we have that serve people experiencing homelessness, and also some of the gaps that we have in our resources. In an effort to be a part of the solution, I would like to offer that list of resources and the gaps and everything to you guys, whether that's in a presentation, which I have already put together for the captain, or if I just send it over by email, however you would like. But I would like to be a part of the conversation of finding solutions, because we need to find solutions, and for both sides of this coin, like our business owners, they need.
Rachel, I'm sorry. Could you move that microphone closer to your mouth, and can you give us your last name again?
Tudehope.
Thank you.
Tudehope.
Thank you.
Our business owners need justice, and the people who are experiencing homelessness also need some justice and kindness too. So I would like to aid in bringing us together in that. So. I do. I have a presentation that I am giving to the police captain, Bertrand, tomorrow morning, but I can also bring it here. Yeah, I can. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else?
Tim Young. Some of you know me. Some of you do not. Some of you I've met recently. Mayor, I've known you for over 30 years. Kind of hard for me to say, and when I read some of the comments, I used to be that nuisance. But yet, I shake hands with most of you. And I'm also a key leader in this town. I've gone through being homeless twice. Do I agree that the warming shelter probably isn't a bad spot on a main road? Yeah, I do. I think that's why it's getting attention. Is there other things we can do? There is. First and foremost, communication. I believe there's been brought up the Sioux Coalition. That once a month meeting is not doing anything right now. Recently brought up the budget meeting. There should have been more conversation about what we can do for the homeless, because we're actually sitting here talking now for almost an hour about this issue. And it's actually been days, weeks, months, years. But yet we're doing other things, and this is a big concern for us. I care about those individuals. Recently, I know other individuals that were family members. They were service people. I work with Mission 22 as well. I don't know if you guys know what that is. That's 22 soldiers a day commit suicide because of PTSD and homelessness. I put my foot on the ground. I stomp all the time when I have my time off. The warming shelter is doing a great job. They need more backing. That's what they need. I also talked to another entity today that said they haven't gotten any funding for the past 2 years for rent and utilities. How can they help and serve? They're reaching out to the community for donations. There's lack of funding coming from the city, the county, the state. And I know how the funding works because I worked in grant business for over 10 years for nonprofits. I was an executive director of a nonprofit for drop-in individuals who were coming off the street with behavioral health issues, PTSD, brain trauma. I've been there, I've done it, and I know how it filters. But they're not getting the funding. So my biggest concern is communication, working together, and yes, it was brought up too, only 2 councilmen showed up at the Homeless Coalition meeting, but that needs to happen more. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything. we're just going to sit here and turn our wheels. And that's what we've been doing for the past years. And it drives me insane. It hits my heart. Bob knows I've reached out to him many times and talked about it. I reached out to Ike. Yeah, something needs to be done. There's other alternatives that we can do, but we all need to work together, and that's my main point. And I'm going to bring up one issue on the agenda today, number 26. Please change that wording. It says nuisance procedure. Please change that wording to people in need. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hope. I have
Your
more.
last name, Hope?
Oh, my name is Hope Fawcett.
Thank you.
I have more of a statement than anything else. As far as solutions go, and as a big-hearted citizen of Sioux City, I actually like driving past and seeing how everybody's doing. I think it's an issue we should not turn away from. I think it's something a lot of people like to avert their eyes from, but I think it's really important to keep it in the public eye. I think it's really important to make it obvious so that it shows how important it is for us to participate and make the situation better for everyone. And I implore all of you to not look away. Keep it in the forefront of everyone's minds so we actually figure this out together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hope.
We'll try to limit discussion, but I think we all get the message, and to continue to have it on the subject of the shelter would seem like we've kind of gone the whole array. So is there any other issue that anybody would like to talk on today under citizen concerns? Okay, thank you. We'll go to building permits. Darrell?
Mayor and Council, building permit reports were provided to you again this year, or this week. They're pretty self-explanatory. Marty does have an update, though, on our new systems for the computer as far as the next step in the procedure. So,
yeah, well, some good news on our software effort to bring new tools to the job. Citizen engagement project. They now have it pretty much set up. The software's been installed, and initial steps are completed. They're actually working on the connectivity for the test server to make sure that it works with all involved, and the 2.0 template issues have been resolved. So that's document management system. So all departments are using the new document management services with no issues. So the next step, we're going to move to the configuration. So in other words, the software is installed. The next step is to move to the configuration, and what that means is that we're going to figure out what we want the web page to look like, and what those different options and what it can do. So we have our original committee that will be meeting next week. It's a bunch of different departments, and we're going to work on 2 sessions with the software company on configuring what that module, what that will look like, the public-facing side of it. And then once we get that done, we will move to the training of more people, everyone they'll be working with it in the different departments. So,
Marty, is this the part where you guys are going to design the scope?
Yeah, design what it
I mean, the
looks
actual, like, what you're going to require from the commercial guys like that. So this is where you're going to be saying, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what we need. When is that?
Yeah.
When is that meeting?
What's that?
When is that meeting?
Next week.
What day? I wouldn't mind coming.
Thursday.
Can you throw me an invite on that?
Thursday.
We don't have the time yet, but it's next Thursday.
Just get back to me on that, 'cause I wouldn't
Do
mind.
you know the time, Mike?
No, I was just going to say, there's going to be different scoping meetings, though, so
Okay.
I don't know. You're going to need specifics before you
All right.
get an expectation.
This encompasses a whole
We
lot of
could meet
things.
with you if you'd like.
Daryl,
We can
When
meet.
we get to the component of that, absolutely, we'll make sure you're involved.
Yeah, this is going to include, inspections and zoning and engineering and fire and everybody that touches the development review process in some way. So we'll get it figured out, and I think we're not locked in place forever. I think some components could be added later, or some features could be added later too, so.
Okay.
all I
There's no
had on
additional
that,
questions
so-
on that, we'll move forward to the nuisance.
No, real quick on the, go ahead.
Yeah.
Only question, I did get a couple reach outs. Can you check where you are on the review and permitting process for Sunnybrook Church for me?
Sure. I don't know if they've actually even submitted an actual application at this point. There's been conversations that the architects have had with us, asking us questions.
Okay.
But I don't know that they've actually submitted the application. Let me just review on
And
here.
you don't
real
need to
quick.
do it now, Daryl. You can go on, but just maybe get back to me tomorrow.
I can, but I believe that's where that is at as far as,
Just informal discussions?
yeah, it's in reviews. They've only asked for information from us. They have not submitted an actual
Okay.
application at this time.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to 26, nuisance procedures.
Sure. I threw together a quick little slideshow. Nuisances, as far as the Inspection Services Department, deals with property. Marty, if you want to bring that, or Heidi?
I'm waiting for Heidi to.
There you go.
Come on,
Okay.
Heidi. Thank you for helping, Heidi.
I'd show her. Huh?
F5. That's all right.
Which one do
I just want to get started with it. Nuisances, what does it mean? Is it, as it relates to the property, nuisances is defined in our municipal code as whatever is injurious to the senses or the destruction of free use of property. So essentially, to interfere with the comfort and enjoyment of life and property is a nuisance. It's about as vague as you can possibly get.
But I just want to be clear before we move on.
Yes.
Nuisance, as it's been used here in the last couple of weeks, it's not meant to identify a person.
That is correct. That's what my opening was
It's
about. This is property
Correct.
for
I
us.
just want to have that for the record.
Absolutely, sure.
No one that has.
Yeah, this
used
is
the
about
word for
property.
any-
We will, I mean, there's some sections in here I can get a little bit more detail, but in a nutshell, a nuisance property can be defined as a habitual offender. And habitual offenders will get municipal citations for being a habitual offender. Matter of fact, some of these photos that you're seeing is at a property that's a habitual offender pretty much every year.
I would just add, the gentleman that was here spoke very eloquently about this. Nuisance is a term used in state law that in our ordinances uses the same term, and
Right.
these definitions, I'm pretty sure, are from state law.
Right, they're not speaking of a person or a group of people, it's property. Okay, I just want to clarify that for the record.
Absolutely, yep. Nuisances are reported to us in several different ways. We get citizen calls all the time. Comm Center will give us referrals, so we'll have some referrals from the Comm Center. Basically, those are first responders have gone onto a property found it in deplorable conditions or they'll send those over to us as well. Nuisances will get called out if they're serving warrants and there's property that needs our attention as well. We'll get called to those as well. City website, there's several options on the website. People will use most any platform to report them to us. We'll respond to those and by putting it in a case, go out and do an actual inspections. Emails, and then we also do proactive. We try to be very, very fair and equal on this. So if we get called out to a particular neighborhood for something, we look at the whole neighborhood. We don't just stop with one address because it could be a feud between property owners and they just don't like each other and they're turning each other in. It's not fair to everybody on the neighborhood, so we'll look at the entire neighborhood. So there will be some proactive ones as well.
It's actually good to know there, because I was going to say, I think sometimes people don't realize that, it's not like you're just driving up and down a street,
Correct.
looking for things, but you get that phone calls.
Yeah, that would be a pretty rare day for us to have the time to just do that, so.
I actually went over and asked them, and they said they get 20 or 30 a day. Not unusual at all.
It's
calls, plus all the other.
Yeah, depending on the season, we could do well more than 20 or 30 in a day as far as, we've actually done over 100 inspections in a day on some of these, so. Encampments, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You know, Vanna does a lot better job. I'm just
There you
go. Encampments on private property. We get these reported quite frequently, more so in the last few years than anywhere else. We are dealing now, we've had a meeting very recently with Hart to help identify some of these encampments. They have a little more difficulty as far as the procedures to move these things away. If it's on private property, it comes under our jurisdiction in the inspections department. Unfortunately, we have to deal with that as well. Notification process becomes very, very lengthy, and it seems like we're just not getting anything done. But the law requirements for notification purposes, before we go in there and remove property, we do have to get a search warrant. So just keep that in mind as we're doing this. I'll bring that up again further in the slideshows.
That are on private property, not on.
Not on, yes, on private property only, not on city-owned property or public right-of-ways. So to move forward with it, the inspector will verify the violation. We'll go out and inspect to make sure that there is actually a violation there. We do photograph everything that is there at that time. So if there's any phone calls or questions about that, or an appeal process is in place, we would have the documentation showing the violation very clearly exists. We are required to send out certified notifications to the property owners. Unfortunately, not everybody signs for their letters. This delays it. Certified mail anymore, if you get a letter back from the United States Postal Service that says they've served a certified mail within 3 weeks, you're very fortunate. You're very fortunate. So we're trying to find ways that we can possibly speed that process up and still fall within the required documents for procedures, because the judge is going to ask us that when we go get a search warrant. Have you followed it? What is the notification process that went through to make so that I'll sign the search warrant so you can go in and remove those items from that property?
But isn't the burden of the city the fact that we sent the certified mail, not whether they respond to it or not?
We still have to show that the notification was made.
Correct.
So we do post it on the property as well, but there's no notification that says that they've actually received it, especially if they're out of town owners. And we find these on vacant lots a lot.
Or avoidance.
I'm sorry, on what?
Or avoidance.
Or avoidance, yeah. We do that a lot. I mean, a lot of people will call our office and say, I got a certified mail notification in my mailbox. What's it for? Well, go pick it up and you'll find out. Well, no, I don't want to, because then it starts my time.
Well.
You know what? This phone call just started your time because I'm telling you what it is.
The code requires that we provide a reasonable time period for the property owner to abate the nuisance prior to the city coming in. So that's really the standard that the courts are looking at, is if we've given a reasonable time period.
So
Kind of went through this in Public Works, though, that they're sending notices, certified mail, and then if we don't get a response, they maybe are sending a second one. But I thought that was uncovered recently, that the burden is us sending it, not whether they reply to it.
Depends statutorily what the type of violation that we're talking about. We're exploring options to send certified mail posts, so we're having those conversations.
Okay.
We've had a conversation about it because we do photograph the posting on the property in a way, in a manner that would show. So if it's on a house itself, we'll step back from the posting, take one up close so you can read it, step one back a little bit so you can notice the address on the property or the door colors or these kind of identifying marks.
Very generous with
And yeah, and we do have to give them, give the opportunity for appeal. Obviously, we do get those occasionally, but with the photographic evidence we have of it, we can show them what the situation is, and usually it's just dropped, or they'll clean it up and take care of it if they move forward with that in that response. If nothing is done, then we go out and we'll actually take our notification process, our photographs of what is all there. We get a judge's signature on it, and then we have some people that we will send out for requests for pricing on it. That all happens within about a 24-hour period because the search warrant only is good for so long. So we get those quotes back very, very quickly. We take the most economical one for our process. We do have to store anything that perceived value for 90 days. So we do have a situation down at down by CMG where we have a building where we'll put those items in for 90 days. And if they want them back, they got to come pay the fines and everything, and then we would release those other items. Otherwise, if there are some items of value, we would put them on a city auction and try to recoup our costs of cleanups. If not, they'll just be disposed of in the dumpsters to get rid of those process. So the cleanup all happens at the same time. So we clean everything up and get rid of everything. Nuisances come in a lot of different ways. Once we get all that done, we actually invoice the property owner for the inspection costs and the contractor costs of doing the actual abatement of it. If they do fail to pay that cost, then they will be brought to council for assessment, which we bring the assessments a couple times a year. Usually there's quite a number of properties on there for those assessments, and they'll get assessed against the property, and would go as a special assessment, and they'll receive those again with their tax bills when they get the property taxes. Fiscal year 2025, we reported to 5,512 nuisances cases, resulting in over 14,000 inspections. Most of your nuisance cases take multiple inspections to go, re-inspections, initial inspections, what have you. Out of those 5,512, we needed to do 41 search warrants, so we administered 41 search warrants and cleaned those properties up via search warrant. Any questions about how that process works?
Yeah, most of those, are they citizen complaint driven?
I would say the vast majority of them are, yes.
So do you think in the last few months, since kind of the direction from this new council, do you feel like that we are becoming more proactive as a city when we're identifying it versus a complaint driven, or we feel like because obviously we're making headway. I mean, and I think you're going to see some really good action down there by Baumgars. That's going to get cleaned up. Sounds like the county's involved and everything.
Yeah, the county, a lot of times, unfortunately, we have state and county.
Yeah.
It drags on a little bit for them unfortunately, to take action on their property and get those things taken care of. And we'll do as much as we possibly can, as far as we can go with those. But as far as whether we think that there's an uptick, this time of year, there's always an uptick.
Yeah.
In the springtime, people are getting out in their yards, they're starting to see things, where they're warming up, now they're looking at everything that's out there, and they're seeing this stuff, and they're going, hey, whoa, we got to get this stuff cleaned up. I don't know that I've seen a major uptick, because there are years that we've had more high winds with things like this, where we've blown trash and debris around, and we'll get more and more of those nuisance complaints when that happens. I probably shouldn't speak on this, but if somebody from our department sees it, lids on trash cans work, and lids on dumpsters are a big help. Enclosures, yeah, they're nice, and they'll kind of keep it, but the high winds that we've been experiencing lately, and one of the reasons why building codes have changed, because the wind loads have changed, all those things have gotten increased. We're seeing more and more trash around. This year, fortunately, we've had some high winds, but they haven't been as frequent as we've had in the past. So we do have some trash and debris that needs to be picked up around the community. They just had a litter dash here recently, which was awesome to see those folks out there cleaning that stuff up. Appreciate that very much. But as far as an uptick from the phone calls coming in, cases are put in the system based as soon as we receive the report to give an actual detail as far as how many come in off a citizen's complaint. I would say that by far the vast majority of those, if they've increased, I wouldn't be able to measurably be able to tell you that.
But I mean, if one of our guys is driving around in a white truck, city truck, and they look over and they see an encampment starting.
Yeah, that'll be a proactive.
We're at a point where the city, we're proactive at this
We'd be
point.
proactive on that. We'd send out.
That's all I was asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just like, until somebody complains, we're not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
We did expand to the status quo.
We just found another one here this last weekend that was on city property, and we've already started addressing that.
Good.
So,
good job.
Darrell, when it becomes when something is qualified as a nuisance, is that, let's say someone's got 10 cars on their front yard, is that?
You could call it a nuisance. You could also call it a zoning violation.
Okay.
And typically, something like that would be handled under a zoning violation.
Okay.
It's could be listed as a nuisance, and a lot of times our letters will go out and we'll reference multiple sections of the municipal code. Tall grasses and weeds is under 2 or 3 different places, for instance, and those are listed on that letter as far as where they fall in out of the municipal code sections. So.
And so once that process, so you go out and you determine if it falls under that, then what happens?
It's from
like if tall grass,
Yeah.
what determines if, I've heard people say native species grasses, and and I'm just trying to understand what
yeah, well, and that's been a point of contention several times, but it doesn't really differentiate. Our code doesn't. Once it's in the municipality itself, okay, it states that if it's over 12 inches, vegetation is over 12 inches, it's a nuisance, period.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you have to use a little bit of judgment with that. But we're by far more lenient than some of our surrounding communities. Some of our surrounding communities are 6 inches, not 12.
Okay.
And I've been asked before, why are we not 6 or 8 inches like some of the other communities are? It's a lot of work, even at 12, I'll say that.
Do you know why we're not?
Couldn't say. I think it was something that was probably discussed decades ago, and is just continuing to move forward
Some
with that.
communities put it in their code.
It is, all municipalities, they'll have to state the type of height. Even if you went to the International Property Maintenance Code, for instance, the section in there that deals with tall grasses and weeds is blank, and the municipality has to fill in that number on how they want that to move forward. So it's no different than what we already have adopted as our municipal code. But when you talk about grass fires and things like that, obviously the taller the grass, the more chance you've got of that, of it being a nuisance in that respect. Does it attract rodents and things like that? It sure can. It's more of a harborage. But we've had pretty consistent with that 12 inches and not being a major issue. But the other nice part of it is our signs are designed so it's
12 inches, it would be that much harder to get back under control.
it's difficult. It is difficult. But it is. I think it's an acceptable rate. I'm just saying that other communities around us are more restrictive than what we are already. Yeah, it's 12. The nice part of it, on our sign notifications that we put in our yard, I've ordered stakes that for posting purposes, we post in the yard. And from the foot portion of that stake where it touches the ground, when you push it in the ground, to the bottom of the sign, it's 12 inches. So then our photographs show of that sign in the yard, it shows the grasses meet the bottom of that sign, which is a measurement tool all in itself for 12 inches.
Up your sign, so.
Yeah, please don't. I have to try to find a whole nother one.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep pumping it out to the field, guys. Keep pumping it out. You're doing a good job.
Chief.
Hello. I think you should have been shipped the latest HART reports, so I don't think there's any new information there. I have to applaud Captain Bertrand for putting some charts in there. I think that puts a good view at a glance for all of you, as well as the fact that from week to week you can see how these things are changing. To kind of bookend with what Darrell indicated, we had a very positive meeting with Darrell and his staff this week about how can we speed up processes. Where are there gaps? Where is the communication not happening? I think by and large, I think everybody's out of their silos as far as the city of Sioux City goes. I think all of our departments are working well together. I was working with inspections back when I was a cast officer, so to me it's just a positive way to do business. So I think from the perspective of how quickly we're getting on things, I think we're getting on concerns quicker than we ever did, just because of that fact that we now have personnel that know each other face to face. A phone call can be made. I think where we still have issues are some of the things that Darrell mentioned about notification, property rights. We are still dealing with, as you mentioned, Councilman Bertrand, the cleanup behind Triview. That presented some barriers because it wasn't our territory. We're also dealing with the DOT, who wants us to take responsibility for their property. And I think as a city, I think we've done a very good job of investing in dealing with these issues. But we need to get partners like the DOT is involved in the solution as we are. But do you have any specific questions about the report or anything I can answer? I know it's been a long council meeting.
One question, Chief. With all this discussion about, being part of the solution and everything, objectively, I feel like that we're moving the ball when it comes to the homeless in this community. We've got more people involved. Do you feel like that your efforts have paid dividends up to this point?
I think anytime you can remove, and I hate to use those terms, but silo is the only way I can say it. I think the fact that we have now brought together a lot of the stakeholders, I think there's still some stakeholders who need to come to the table or need to contribute more to the solution. But I think the fact that we have broken down a lot of those barriers is significant.
Is it unreasonable for this council now, that with the progress that we've made, and this isn't a knee-jerk thing that we've been working since we've got here, is it reasonable now that we're at the point where we're identifying the people that don't want help? And the fact that in some of these people, there's a criminal element, which means drugs or the trespassing. Are we at that point that's the next step, which is, I had a nice conversation with Captain Bertrand about this, where it's the policing side of it. It's the part where, guys, these are the 20% that are, like I've said before, I believe holding downtown hostage. That's the 20%. So are we at a point in this progress, this agenda, this that's fair to say that's where we're at that policing element of this, of enforcement on those 20%.
Well, I think from our standpoint, we definitely need to stay in our lane. And that's our primary function.
Yeah.
As a member of the task force, we do need to default to law enforcement options when it comes to, as you mentioned. And I think the communication is happening with the judges. The sentences are reflecting that. I think we've solved a lot of those issues. But yes, in fact, as you see on the weekly report out, there's one of those pie charts mentioned specifically who is willing and unwilling to accept services. So it kind of shows some of the folks that we're addressing or dealing with that are uninterested in services, uninterested in changing, and if criminal justice means are the best way we have to deal with that, that's what we're going to do. That's our primary function, and we have other providers within the task force that specialize in referrals, that specialize in treatment and some of those things. We still have to stay in our lane. I think we can facilitate. I think we can ensure the safety of participants, but we're still cops. And that's what Captain Bertrand was trying to do with the report out, is to turn the dial a little bit so that what we were reporting on focused on law enforcement efforts. And I agree with him that we can't get too far out of our lane. I think this is a great collaboration. I think we're doing a lot of good things, but we still have to default to arrest when it's necessary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Council concerns, Mr. Bertrand.
The word concerns, and you said that before.
But it's always just
I'm
what
not
it's always been
concerned. There's a
called.
little update there, yeah.
I agree.
Maybe council comments.
Real quick,
We can't change it. I've already asked.
I heard that, yeah. Greg and I had a nice meeting with Tom and some community experts on wastewater, and I think it was a great meeting. More to come on that when it comes to as they start to zone in on the budget and actual expenditures. So more to come on that, but I was really encouraged that as a council, we're staying on top of that. So actually, Mike, next week I'm kind of going down my list on where I'd like to be. It's time to tackle the grading permit process. I know that's, I heard you swallow right there. It's not fun. It's been something that's been hanging out there for a dozen years. It's time to make the changes that we all said need to be. So let's give us an update on what the grading permit process is. Let's talk all the way through when it's allowed, what can't be done, what can be.
There's some gray area there for sure.
We're gonna finally do it as a community. We're gonna do it. And then also I'd like to bring the variance process. It kind of fits in the same thing. Let's define the variance process, because I want to rip that Band-Aid off and we're gonna open that baby up. So those kind of where the next progress is when it comes to economic development. I'd love to see that. Also, I'd love to have Reagan come back in from Downtown Partners, give us an update where they're at with the ambassadors. A lot of great things going on downtown. Would love to see what she's got going on there. Other than that, it's going to be a great week of weather. And I did appreciate all of the feedback on the discussion. Rhetoric gets hot at times. I think we're all want the same thing, which is to improve our community. There's no villains here. We are running a process, and I just encourage the dialogue that we have, and good job.
And I will say, we have drafted a new grading ordinance. It's in the review.
Love to see it.
session. It's with engineering right now, but we can provide a copy of the draft that we have.
Yeah, let's just, if it's a work in progress, then maybe we can take some input from the council on that, but maybe we can provide some insights from the public, if the public wants to discuss it. Thank you.
I have a couple of items, but I'm going to save them in light of the time. I did want to acknowledge, Rick had mentioned the meeting we had last week on the wastewater treatment facility. Good discussion and good progress in understanding the scope and how we manage that. And I will be happy to visit with Reagan and ask her to do a presentation on the ambassador. That's it.
Rayford.
Absolutely. You know what, Mike, and I should have sent you an email. Did we ever take care of the thing behind Beacons? There was a little encampment there.
You mean the wall?
That
fence?
No, yeah, that fence.
Fence area?
Right. I know that
I'll
we
check
kind
on
of
the
talked
status.
about it, right. See that. I guess the only thing, well, you know, I would love to, you know if Mike, if we can reach out to Tom or whomever about the FOG program and maybe have a presentation on what that looks like and how that affects.
On what program?
The FOG.
FOG.
Fats, oil, and grease.
Fats, oil, and grease.
Oh, okay.
We did just update that whole thing last
Yeah.
week.
It's probably a good time.
Great question.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go over the-
So yeah, if we can, yeah, we would love to know a little bit about that. The other thing, Shayla and gang, thank you for being here. Always, I love the feedback and love the engagement. And one thing I will say, the three of us, when we were running, one of the big issues was homelessness and what that looks like and how, so I do understand, Councilman Bertrand's, position, and people want answers. They want to know what that looks like and how we're going to solve it. And and one thing that I think Craig and I have talked about, we realize that homelessness is every city is affected by it. And so we know that everything that we're trying, we're just trying to figure it out. And so sometimes we go different routes to get there, but this is where it starts, right? And so I appreciate, and everybody here, I appreciate your comments and engagement. That's what it's about. I ran on being responsive to the community, and we want to respond to you and do what's right and get it right. So.
Thank you. I have nothing further. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Rayford.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Berenstein.
Aye.
Bertrand.